Episode 8 of Season 2 of Arcane is an episode that is primarily focused on setting up the finale in Episode 9. Even so, there are still a lot of things that you might have missed in this episode, Easter eggs and hidden details. Here's 50 of them. As I've already discussed before on my channel, we know that this is LeBlanc. We know this because she's using an ability that she actually has in game called Ethereal Chains. Those touched by the Arcane, as the show puts it, or basically mages, seem to have glowing eyes as an indicator of them using their abilities or powers. Mel's outfit here is black and it's embroidered with this chain pattern if you look at the details. There also seems to be black rose stitching or a black rose thorn plate attached to the top. Due to her current outfit's symbolic ties to the black rose, we can assume that she was given it by them, and it is somewhat foreshadowing the fact that she's going to help them in future. These totem-like poles are used to chain down Mel in the oculum, and they look very similar to the old Kale sword from League of Legends. We can see in this shot that Mel's power this time actually cracked the floor. The last time she used it in the counselor's room, we can see that it protected the floor. This might be a characteristic of the test or the oculum that she was in itself, or the reason for it might be that it's a completely different power she has opposed to her protection spell. An important detail about Mel's golden plates is that they no longer seem to be accessories. Now the series will have to explain this a bit further, but it seems like all of those golden plates are a part of Mel's skin. It's explained by LeBlanc that Mel has a rare form of magic. Her magical powers are somewhat attuned to counter other major spells or mirror them. LeBlanc also points out that a simple blade will do nicely if she wanted Mel dead. This implies that Mel's power would do very badly against people who wield weapons, so she'd have a hard time going against assassins or fighter type characters. We can see that the pendant LeBlanc wears and the form she takes is the same girl who Ambessa beheads in the first season. Ambessa calls this girl a symbol of the old regime. Given the fact that we've now seen this necklace twice in the series, and the fact that Kino was wearing a somewhat differently shaped version of the same necklace, and also considering that Mel is given this when she decides to help the Black Rose, does mean that it has a greater significance to the story. This whole old regime narrative will need to be explained to us a bit further whenever they decide to continue the story. Another interesting thing you might remember about this necklace is that Mel has actually painted it before. LeBlanc has black nails, which is something I hadn't noticed about her before they decided to blatantly show this part of her design to us. It's the one thing that stands out in this shot. This could be important again at some point, but not in the current season. It is also revealed to us by LeBlanc that she senses not only the Arcane is waking up, but a calamity that can match the Rune Wars is coming. However, even though she sounds like she wants to stop all of this, she seems too busy to deal with it herself. So she sends Mel on a mission to deal with Victor. This begs the question, what is the greater threat that LeBlanc is dealing with, which would stop her from dealing with the problem in Piltover herself? Here, again, in this shot, we can see how mages are portrayed in this universe. However, this could just be Victor.
We can't afford another failure. This is what you see in me? A silver bullet?
In some folklore, silver bullets are items that are used to kill werewolves. Given that Ambessa embodies the wolf, this is a sick line.
But then your mother led us to you, sister.
We get confirmation in this episode that the reason why LeBlanc refers to Mel as sister in episode 5 is because they are both basically mages. And she considers Mel to be her kin or family because of this. She even blatantly welcomes Mel to the family, as she puts it. This crow that flies by Mel here implies that Swain is watching what is going on between her and LeBlanc. If you don't know who Swain is, he is the current Grand General of Noxus, basically the leader of that nation. If we pause the frame, we can even see that the crow even has a red eye, much like the ones that Swain has. Singed seems to be using a larger version of the machine that he used to transfuse his own blood with Warwick's earlier in the series. This time it's being used to revive and empower Victor. Sky begins to fear Victor or grow concerned with his action, even though up until this point they've seemed like one entity reliant on each other. Loris takes care of Vi again, but we never actually get an explanation as to why he's so cool with her, especially because some of her behavior is sketch, right? All I know about Loris is that this is the type of friend you want in your life. he's a day one. The green pillows in this scene are the giveaway that we are currently in the Kierman mansion. Maddie feels dejected after the scene plays out. She even starts eavesdropping on their conversation. More on this when I do the video about episode 9.
There are cells buried deep within this prison, so devoid of light and fresh air and all basic human considerations that up till now I have forbidden their use.
Given we've never seen the part of Stillwater prison that Jinx is currently in, Caitlin probably put her in one of those cells she was threatening Singed with. The inside of it even matches the description of what she was talking about. As we can see, Jinx isn't eating anything. This is when we find out that she's given up on living. And since Jinx is over being alive right now, she keeps daring and provoking Caitlin to do something to her.
Do what you came here to do.
Again, in this shot we can see the Crow following Mel around Piltover. After fixing the counselor's room, they've stitched together parts of the old table using gold. Here we can clearly see the radius that Mel was able to protect with her ability, hence the lack of damage to that part of the table. In this shot, Jace's hammer reacts to something and then Mel shows up, so it reinforces his belief that Mel is a mage. However, it's later revealed that it was probably reacting to one of Victor's dolls that was there in the room with them. This particular doll is Huck. We can tell because of the pendant he was wearing before being transformed. It's now fused with the design of his doll. And we can also tell because of the shoulder guard he was wearing, which is another giveaway. As mentioned earlier, Mel's arcane talent can bend other mages' magic or mirror it. That's why Victor is shocked here. He sees what would be a counterspell to his exact brand of magic. When Jace uses Hextech, we can see some sort of corruption on his arm, close to the gem that Victor gave him. Victor is growing weaker, and that doll's death cost him a lot of energy. He tells Singed to begin the process, which is a process to transfuse him with Warwick, taking Warwick's blood, which is essentially Apex Shimmer, and transforming Victor into a new, greater being. This is explained in episode 6. Jinx still has the Hextech gemstone and she starts talking to it as if it were Silco. We can tell this because Silco's eye glows blue, just like the gemstone would. The blue is a great touch since the last time we saw Jinx and Silco together was this scene.
I used to say I could fix anything. Before I broke everything.
Maybe we could rewrite your story like you did with Zahn. What do you think?
When Vi says maybe we can rewrite your story, it becomes very clear and apparent that Silco was actually right. You see, Silco once told Jinx that Vi would always try and change her and mold her into something else. After the council gets destroyed, Vi sides with Caitlin and leaves Jinx behind. Now Silco was a terrible person, but his genuine concern as a father of Jinx humanized him.
There's no good version of me.
Jinx saying that there's no good version of her adds to my previous point. What she's saying here is that there's no version of her she feels Vi will accept. Now this is a whole video on its own, but Jinx seems to be only driven by the characters around her, i.e. Silco, Vi, and Isha. As she loses them in her life, she slowly loses her will to live. Jace has a new coat. And based on the framing of this shot, we can now assume that he is the leader of the council. This would probably be because Ambessa goes rogue, which has killed Caitlin's legitimacy as Grand Commander. This guy playing the piano will be important in episode 9, but it seems like they are trying to mold him or shape him to be an important character in future. He gets about as much time as Savika, so there's definitely something going on there. The Kierman Madada emblem has been removed from Piltover, and they are now back to using their old emblem. This scene with the rail car is a match of the scene that Jace was walking through in episode 7, the one with mass panic. The more I see this emblem, the more convinced I am that I was actually right, that this is the emblem for Piltover's academy. And like I said in my previous video, it looks a lot like the unsealed spellbook rune from League of Legends. Also notice that we can see the pianist here again too. Here's one that keeps grabbing my attention, but I haven't felt the need to mention until now. The noble families of Piltover have designs that are way too specific and well thought out for them to just be side characters. Their design but lack of involvement in Arcane does indicate that we'll probably be seeing these characters again. The next sequence of shots actually show us exactly where the battle will take place in Piltover in the next episode. There are also tons of airships fleeing Piltover right now. Instead of running away, Gert sees this old lady and she decides that she'd rather protect her home. So her and a bunch of other people from the Undercity join the enforcers, including this guy with tattoos who allowed his child and his wife to leave. Notice that Ambessa's forces are still wearing the old Kierman emblem when Mel comes through to try and broker peace. Again, the Koenig Rukun is put in a bunch of hot coals by Ambessa. This seems to be a ritual you have to perform to get it to work. We know this because Rictus does the exact same thing earlier on. In the background of this shot, we can see all of the Noxians buried after they fight with Warwick. This shot also shows us Mel's boots that have that black rose thorn pattern on them, showing that she is still considering working with them. They end up showing us the graves again, and this one specifically belongs to Rictus. In this moment, we can see that Mel realizes that as well when she sees his spear. Now, this scene was super important because it tells us that 1. Ambessa deeply cares about her kids, even though it may not always seem that way, and 2. that she was forced to choose between saving Kino or Mel's life, knowing that the Rose would target Mel if they knew she had the gift. And because Mel had this arcane talent, Ambessa was forced to choose her over Kino due to the Medada's legacy, which Ambessa values deeply. She basically decides that Mel would have a better chance of leading the family's future than Kino would. This does seem to go over Mel's head, but Ambessa is doing all of this for her. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still messed up that she's doing it, but she has her reasons. It seems Sky won't be able to exist around Victor anymore as he takes up his new form, and in typical Arcane fashion, they draw a parallel between her disappearing in this scene and her disappearing in this other scene with the Hex Core. This scene represents Vander losing his old self and all of his old memories. He's basically just a beast now. Powder's pen in Vander's flashback has a skull on it. Given that Vander's score for darts in the previous episode also had a skull on it, we can now tell what the Arcane writers were doing here. These are death flags. The episode ends with Victor completing his transformation, which is fitting because the episode began with Mel completing hers. These are our 2 mages in the series, and they both sit on opposite sides of Jace, funny enough. The gold glow around him is to show that his true capabilities have been awakened. And finally, in the spicy scene with Caitlyn, Vi's fist is all torn up, and we know it's torn up because she punched the prison wall after Jinx left her there. So this is really great narrative consistency by the writers, and you really have to pay attention if you're writing to remember small details like that. So props to the Arcane team. And that is 50 hidden details and Easter eggs that you might have missed. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed the video. This is Lois signing off.